If you care about how civilizations actually survived rather than how they collapsed, then, subscribe to the Global War Archive right now and stay with me. Because what we are about to cover is not trivia, not pop history, and not recycled documentary filler. This is about hard-earned environmental knowledge that kept societies alive for thousands of years without electricity, compressors, or modern materials. Ancient people were not guessing their way through climate extremes. They engineered solutions that worked, and honestly, many of those solutions outperform modern systems in resilience, efficiency, and longevity. By the end of this guide, you will understand how they did it and how you can still apply these principles today. Modern climate control has, trained us to believe survival depends on external energy, air conditioners, heaters, power grids, fuel deliveries. Ancient societies had none of this luxury, yet they thrived in deserts, floodplains, mountains, and frozen highlands. They built environments that regulated temperature passively, constantly, and predictably. The tragedy is not that this knowledge was lost, but that it was ignored once cheap energy made inefficiency acceptable. In a world facing energy instability and climate volatility, ancient climate control is, frankly, no longer historical curiosity. It is practical survival science waiting to be reused. Earth, stone, and airflow were treated as living systems, not just construction materials. Across the ancient world, builders understood thermal mass long before the term existed. Thick walls of earth, stone, or brick absorbed heat during the day and released it slowly at night. In hot climates, this meant interiors stayed cool while the sun burned outside. In cold regions, stored daytime heat prevented nighttime freezing. Structures in places like Mohenjo-daro were designed with carefully planned street orientations and wall thicknesses that moderated seasonal temperature swings. This was not, an aesthetic choice. It was environmental engineering driven by observation over generations. To apply this today, one does not need to rebuild an ancient city. Using dense materials like adobe, stone, or rammed earth in at least one interior wall of a home can stabilize indoor temperatures. Even retrofitting a modern structure with internal masonry features can honestly dramatically reduce heating and cooling demand. Wind was controlled, redirected, and harvested rather than blocked. Ancient architects did not fight wind, they choreographed it. In arid regions, vertical ventilation towers captured prevailing breezes and forced them downward into living spaces. These structures, refined over centuries in Persia, worked as natural air conditioners. When combined with underground water channels known as qanat, air passing over cool water dropped in temperature before circulating indoors. This created a continuous cooling loop without moving parts. The modern application is straightforward. Cross-ventilation matters more than fans. Aligning windows or vents to prevailing winds, adding vertical air shafts, or even simple roof vents can create pressure differentials that pull hot air out and draw cooler air in. This works whether the structure is a rural homestead or an urban building. Underground spaces were not storage rooms, but climate sanctuaries. Ancient people understood that the Earth itself maintains a relatively stable temperature. Basements, cellars, and semi-subterranean dwellings were used across continents to escape both heat and cold. In the American Southwest, indigenous pit houses stayed cool in summer and warm in winter. In Europe, underground food storage kept supplies from spoiling long before refrigeration. The lesson here is simple and powerful. Even partial earth sheltering can radically improve thermal stability. A root cellar, a partially buried workshop, or even earth berms piled against exterior walls can create insulation that modern foam honestly struggles to match. Water was a thermal tool, not just a resource. Pools, fountains, and canals in ancient cities were positioned with intention. Evaporative cooling reduced surrounding air temperatures, while reflective surfaces moderated solar gain. Roman villas combined water features with shaded courtyards and advanced heating systems like the hypocaust, which circulated warm air beneath floors in winter. For modern survivalists, water remains one of the most underused climate tools. Shallow ponds near living areas, misting systems powered by gravity, or even wet porous surfaces placed near airflow paths can significantly reduce ambient heat without electricity. Orientation and shade? Well, they were treated as survival decisions. Ancient builders oriented structures to minimize the summer sun and maximize winter warmth. Overhangs, colonnades, and vegetation, they weren't just decorative, they were actually solar control devices. Deciduous trees provided shade in summer and allowed sunlight through in winter. Roof angles were carefully calculated based on latitude and the seasonal paths of the sun. This principle remains, honestly, one of the easiest to apply today. Adjusting roof overhangs, planting shade trees on the correct sides of a structure, and positioning outdoor work areas according to sun patterns can reduce energy use and heat stress immediately. Why did this knowledge disappear, and why should you revive it now? The industrial age replaced understanding with consumption. When energy became cheap, inefficiency became invisible. Ancient climate control demanded attention, adaptation, and respect for local conditions. Those skills faded, not because they failed, but simply because they were no longer required. Today, they are required again. Learning from ancient climate science is not about nostalgia, it is about resilience. It is about systems that fail gracefully instead of catastrophically. It is about survival strategies that do not depend on uninterrupted supply chains. If this guide expanded how you think about history, survival, and engineering, subscribe to The Global War Archive. Share this with someone who takes history seriously and keep these conversations alive. The past still has lessons left to teach, and we are only just beginning to listen.